Hey everybody, it's Mike Sullivan with Born to Shine. Today we have an awesome guest. His name is Dr. Sito Narcisse, and he is in East Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And you know what, Dr. Narcisse, thank you, man, for being with us today and carving out time.
No, I appreciate you inviting me. It's always great to engage around like education and talking about kids. So excited.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. Well, thanks for making time for us. To start off, what was your journey like to become a superintendent? That's a really big
Yeah,
position, a lot of responsibility, and I think you guys have like 40,000 plus
yeah,
kids,
yeah,
that are dependent on you. So, what was that journey like?
yeah. So my journey was not like a straight line. So I lived a lot of places, moved a lot of places. I grew up as a English language learner. I'm from New York. My parents came from the island of Haiti, and although me and my brothers were all born, I'm a middle child of three boys. We were all born in New York. We grew up speaking Creole and French and learned English in school. That kind of helped influence how I thought. And my parents were like really, although they worked like 7 days a week, but really like community driven folks. And so didn't know I was going to go into teaching. I went to college in Atlanta. I always tell people, I was a 17-year-old kid that was leaving New York with like braids in my hair, baggy jeans, and Timberland boots,
That's
listening to
awesome.
hip hop music with a Walkman. So, I tell people catching the trains and stuff. But I went to college in Atlanta. And then when I got to college in Atlanta, wasn't really sure what I was going to do. It was just, I think at that time I was like, I don't know, a comms major or business, something like that. And then I started tutoring some kids because, I was trying to make some extra money. And when I was tutoring one of the kids, like one of the kids was a middle school kid and he just couldn't read. I was
Hmm.
and a young black guy. And I was just like, how did they let this kid get through all these grades and they didn't let you can't read. So I went back to the professor and I was complaining. She said to me, "What are you going to do about it?" And I said to her, "Man, if it was up to me, I'd go in there like teach blah blah blah." So why don't you think about going into teaching? And that's how uh,
Wow.
I got into teaching that way. And then I followed that pathway in school. And then Vanderbilt University gave me a scholarship after I finished undergrad to go to grad school there for Peabody to go into teaching. Then, taught a few years there. And then from there, I went on to get my doctorate at University of Pittsburgh and then just moved up accordingly. And then, I just took opportunities where they were. I've been in probably, I've been in 10 different school districts, 6 cities, a few counties. As I kept moving, I mean, moving was never a problem for me. So wherever there's an opportunity, we just moved across the country. And so that's then and then I got to I came back to I was at the DC public schools where I was the chief of schools there. And then I then got the opportunity here in Baton Rouge. Baton Rouge is a typical urban district. It's part of the Council of Great City Schools. We're second largest in the state of Louisiana. Has all the elements of your typical urban district, and been here almost 3 years now. So
That's awesome. What a cool story. I love that it all starts with a student and that he wasn't able to read.
yeah,
You cared.
yeah,
I want to help this kid. And well, what are you going to do? And I'll teach him. Okay,
yeah,
there you go. That's
yeah,
how it happened. That's so cool.
yeah,
Well, when you were a kiddo, K through 12, somewhere in there, any year, if elementary or middle school or high school, was there anything that you struggled with? Because I know I sure did as a kid. I was bullied a lot, and then I had ADD and OCD. I had A through Z. So there was anxiety, there was depression, all these really grown up feelings in a
yeah.
little kid's body. I didn't understand. So if you're open to share, we'd love to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, what I struggled. So my parents didn't have a whole lot. I mean, I always tell folks, the good thing I think I had was a mom and dad at home. And well, we didn't have a whole lot, but because that structure was there, I always had a place to lean on when something was not always in the best place for me.
Mm,
I don't know. My biggest struggle at time was, I grew up probably one of the most biggest struggles I used to tell my mom and dad all the time was like, I didn't really have a lot of people that thought I would be anything.
Mm.
Um, and it's kind of bad to frame it this way, but like I was upset about that all the time. So I had like this chip on my shoulder to be like, oh, I'm going to prove them wrong. I mean, I don't know. I don't think, I don't, you know, as I'm now, you know, I'm much older. I'm 47 now. Like, man, why did I like, you know, allow frustration to be my driver? But like, so I always got caught up in this point. I'm gonna prove these people wrong. I'm gonna prove this wrong. I'm gonna prove that wrong. Right? So it became kind of my pattern in a way. And so, and I think that that became always tough because even if I did things a particular way, it was like, you know, I always had like, are they judging me or am I going to be accepted? And so those things, I think as I grew up, stayed in my head a lot, which always raised anxiety for me to try to do perfect work or you know, provide something better. But I don't think it was a healthy way to deal with things because, you know, um, I didn't understand how to self manage myself mentally in that space, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
I think I've gotten better as I got older and understand life better and, you know, those things. And then I'll start to understand, like, listen, you're not the only one that goes through that. A lot of other people go through that, you know, and that helped me a lot. You know, it's no different with the kid that couldn't read. I think the reason that resonated with me the most because I was like, wow, like I think I saw myself in them. Like people didn't expect a whole lot, so you know, that was just the way it was. So
That's actually a real beautiful share, Cito. I appreciate that, and I know our listeners will too, because you touched on some universal struggles. You know, one of which is feeling like our, you know, that people are judging us, and then another one is, are, you know, am I being accepted? That's a universal struggle that we all go through at some point in our life.
yeah,
So that's I'm really grateful that you brought that up, because I'm sure there's a lot of people watching right now and listening to you saying that's me, and I struggle with that too. And it's great to hear that, you know, over time you learn those skills to get through that. And you know, we're all human. We're all just taking
yeah,
it
that's
one
right.
day at a time.
That's right.
We're nobody's perfect, and we try and do perfect work and never is, and
Yeah,
that
that's right.
perfection gets in the way too. And so it's just I just really appreciate your genuineness and your authenticity. That takes a lot of strength to do. And um you know, that's true leadership, opening up and being just real and authentic. And then so that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. That's really
You
cool.
know, I was just thinking like my mom and dad. It was interesting. My parents, they were always on like, you know, you got to do this because you're going to be judged. You're going to. They used to tell me that too. Me and my brothers all the time. Like, you know,
Mm,
you have to understand like, you know, people see black males this way, and just like
mm,
it was just like ingrained in us. Like, you know,
mm.
and I think like with my own parents, it was just a matter of the protected being
Yeah.
protected parents, right?
Yeah.
So especially they, you know, they came from another country trying to understand the dynamic because for them,
Yeah.
success was more about like living a decent life, you know. I mean, so that was kind of like ingrained in us around, well, you got to do better, you got to do this, you got to do that, you know. And I think that I think in some ways that helped me in terms of like being driven, but in other ways it didn't help me with other pieces. So like, you know, so but I think over time you get better
Yeah.
with how you deal with that.
Yeah, you got that lifetime experience and the wisdom that you only gained over decades, you know, of
Yeah,
relationships and working with other people. And so that's, yeah, that's it's we're all the same. We're
yeah,
all in the same boat.
yeah,
And you know what's working well at your school district now that you're leading it and running it. You know, and there's, I don't even know, a lot of schools, 80 or something, a lot.
yeah, yeah,
So you
yeah.
got a bunch of kids. You know, what are y'all doing to support their mental health so they can self-regulate and feel good about themselves and be kind to each other? You know, have you noticed things that are working well, or some things that aren't, that you'd like to see more of, or what?
Yeah, well, we've introduced this concept. It's not a new concept; other districts have done, but it's called multi-tier system of support,
Mm-hmm.
where you're working with kids not only from an academic standpoint, but how do you connect the social emotional connection with academics? So, like when a kid
Yeah.
is off track, for example, the first thing people want to do is like, you know, they look at it from a data standpoint, you know, is it attendance, behavior, or course passage rate? But we're trying to figure out like what's more the bigger issue.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we can figure that out with partners, then we can help them strive more for long-term success.
Awesome.
And so we've been trying to figure that out. And also, how do you figure out like ways to identify that earlier so teachers don't feel the burden of all that? Like, 'cause, teachers are almost felt like, especially like now with how things are like one-stop shops
Yeah.
when it starts. And so like over time being in education, like I've learned that the teacher can't do it on their own. And so you have to figure out what are ways to like help get extra support and partnering to help work with kids and whatever the issue may be, right? And those issues range from a lot of wide things. Could be home challenges to just how they're growing up to acceptance, right? So it's all these other factors I think that has played a tremendous part on their growth trajectory. And I think that what we've been trying to do is figure out like how do we connect that with academics, because we are an academic institution, but trying to make sure it has a much more wraparound approach for kids.
Yeah, that wraparound approach is brilliant, and that's going to truly set your kids up for success. So I love it. I wish every school district thought the same way you do, and there are a lot that do. But it's so refreshing to hear that, Cito, because of course we want our kids to do well scholastically, but if they're struggling emotionally, that's
They
going to
won't
bring
do it. That's right.
it
That's right.
all, they all tie together. So it's great. You're like how you said, the wraparound, you're taking care of the whole child.
And
That's
it,
awesome.
and it feels like now in education we are starting to understand that better.
Mm-hmm.
I think I remember when we were growing up, there that was never the thing. It's like if you
Mm-hmm.
didn't function a particular way or you didn't do a certain thing, you'd have to like toughen up,
Mm-hmm. And punish. It was punishment.
punishment. That's right. And so that had different effects on different kids. I think about some of the kids that I grew up with that didn't do as well. So I always think about like what were their experiences like what made me different
Yeah.
compared to them, right? So
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. It's awesome that you guys are doing it. It's so good that you have truly the wisdom and discernment, and you see the big picture, right? You're pulling the camera way back, and you're seeing the forest,
yeah.
and that's so good, man. That you're that's it's awesome that you're the soup. That's so good. And if there's anything that you thought, I wish that dude would ask me this. Why didn't Michael ask me this? Like anything you want to just share, that's on
Yeah.
your hearts, and
Okay.
that you like a final thought or some a bit of wisdom or advice or something you'd like to share, maybe with other superintendents or with
Yeah.
teachers or anyone.
Yeah, I think like, I always feel like this type of work is a learning journey. Like there's always this you know, it's always shared publicly, like everything is figured out, or if you do this, you get this. It's
Mm-hmm.
never a straight line, right?
Right.
I think it's a matter of like you problem solving, making adjustments, improving adaptation over time. I mean, people are not widgets, right? They're like humans and they come with feelings and all that. And I think like if you're able to do the job long enough, with all the political stuff that seems to sometimes hamper us from progress, I think that you make you adapt over time for improvements, and then you try to create things that are sustainable, right? I've learned over time that you could have the best plan, but it's only sustainable if you have a long enough time to make sure you put enough foundation for it to happen. And like that's a I've learned that through good lessons. I've also learned through failures too. So it's just around trying to adapt yourself. And I think like also the world is much different than we think. Our context and also the sensitivity is no longer there. I feel in the work. So like what's harder or more complex for superintendents, principals, and teachers is like now you have to like create spaces that people are feeling included, their voices are heard, and they feel valued, and at least there's an opportunity for dialogue. I always feel like I feel like I've seen that change over time. That everything is the opportunities like I always feel like now things are so much more tribal. I call it. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
I just think that it's great to in education that we're trying to go back into this notion of like it's like the whole child, who they are, their family, their community and stuff. So
Yeah, Dr. Narcisse, thank you so much, man. This has been awesome. Everything you've shared has just been just so helpful. And I know superintendents listening, or assistant soups, directors of curriculum, parents, even teachers are probably thinking yeah, he gets it. So thank you so much for carving out some time for us today.
Yeah, thanks so much for the invitation. And thanks for allowing us to have this conversation. Usually conversations are wide range. I don't think we talk about this enough. And it's great to see your platform giving a voice to that. So
Man, thank you. I really appreciate that.